Hey, everybody, we're live, and thanks. My good friend Andy Dolich has agreed to join me for what promises to be a heck of a fun
Hey, everybody,
talk.
we're live,
And
thanks.
I keep doing
My
that
good
one
friend-
thing where I always have the video on, but you heard it twice. So nice to have this. You said twice. Andy, how are you?
I'm great. Your words always echo in the hills, no matter where those hills are, right? Perfect. So it's always a pleasure to be with you talking about what's happening in the world, not just sports, but beyond. So happy to be with you today.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. That echo you're talking about, I just thought that was the other me in my head running me that I'm really a nutcase. But at any rate, Andy, this came out right here. John Shea of the San Francisco Chronicle said that Joe Lacob once had a deal to buy the A's and still has a vision to keep the Athletics in Oakland, which sounds great. But there's one problem. You were there and you said to me, I don't remember that. Hey, elaborate on what's happening.
The story that John Shea wrote, and John is one of the better journalists in the Bay Area and in the country writing baseball. And when I read the piece yesterday, I was looking at particular mention that Joe, who went to Stanford's Graduate School of Business, he spent some time specifically with Roy Eisenhart and Wally Haas. And as people know, the Haas family owned the team from 1980 to 1995. I was there from 80 to 94. And I just don't remember Joe being in the office at all. Now, that doesn't mean that he wasn't. I think what I found out is there were a bunch of graduate school students from Stanford that came into the A's office from time to time. And if you really want to talk about the ultimate Renaissance person in Bay Area sports, it's Roy Eisenhart, period, end of sentence, who was the president of the Oakland A's during our terrific run with the Haas family. So I can't say that it didn't happen, but in terms of the detail, I didn't quite understand what Joe was referring to. And then, look, without doubt, the Warriors are one of the most successful professional sports franchises anywhere. And you have to give Joe Lacob, Peter Guber credit. We'll come back to that in a moment. But to say that, hey, I always wanted to buy the A's and I'm friends with John Fisher, well, how come you don't own the A's by now? I mean, you've proven your absolute astute level of building a sports franchise. John Fisher has shown no proclivity to be public. Joe Lacob is terrific on the public stage. And you just look at what they've done in terms of building the team. And more importantly, although it hurts us in Oakland, he built a spectacular arena in San Francisco. So why doesn't he already own the team? And I can only say through Bob Piccinini, George, our great You Can Guarantee It, Men's Warehouse, George Zimmer, and a number of other investors, we actually had a deal in principle to buy the A's from Schott and Hoffman in 2000 for $122 million. A great friend of Oakland's in baseball, Bud Selig, said, nah, I don't want to do that deal. Schott and Hoffman continued to own the team. They had some success with Moneyball, and then they sold the team to John Fisher, who's now owned the team for 17 years. We don't have to go into chapter and verse as to what's happened over those 17 years. So I don't quite understand why Joe isn't further along in buying the A's.
Also, didn't that deal involve then Alameda newspaper group publisher and later Coliseum Joint Powers Authority executive director Scott McKibben?
Our deal?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that Scott played a role in terms of representing the ownership of the Bay Area News Group, which was really the ownership in Denver of, big money there. Scott was involved, but not at the level that, he got to when he was running the JPA without sort of confusing things. The money was Bob Piccinini, who owned Save Mart Supermarkets, Lucky Stores, significant dough, a guy named Leo Hindery. George Zimmer had, 3,500 stores nationally at that time, and a number of other significant high wealth individuals. So it wasn't the money. Bud Selig wanted Steve Stone and one of his friends in the East Bay to buy the team, and that just didn't happen. We had all these commitments for season tickets, sponsorships, etc. One of the points about Joe that I did think I'd bring up, because I'm a big fan of the Warriors and what they've accomplished. And in most of the PR, you see Joe Lacob and Peter Guber, right, Zennie?
Yep.
You don't see a lot of other people, but let's not forget the incredible success of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, Bob Myers, Mike Brown, Ron Adams, Bruce Fraser, Dr. Rick Celebrini, who's brought these players back from serious injuries.
Rick Walsh,
including Klay, Drew Yoder, Larry Riley, who found this skinny kid from Davidson, who people said, I don't know if he's going to be a real good player. He's got weak ankles. Jerry West, who told Joe Lacob personally, if you trade Klay Thompson, I'm going to let the country know what you're doing. And, when Klay was not becoming Klay early on, Rick Welts and what Rick had done in helping to build Chase Center, Brandon Schneider, Lou Gerardo, Erica Glazer, Chad Hurley, Bridget Lau, who are on the executive board of the Warriors, other investors, and
YouTube founder.
Arctos, who's just come in it, and one of the most singular, incredible legends who's luckily been with the team forever, Al Attles. So I have no problem with giving Joe Lacob all the props that he's gotten, but there's another 100, 200, or 400 people that have helped create that franchise into the magnificent entity that it is today.
Why do you think Joe really brought this up the way that he did?
I'm not exactly sure, Zennie. I do know that John Shea, who wrote the piece, worked on this book about Steve Schott. And the A's were owned by Steve Schott and the late Ken Hoffman, who had a lot to do with building Black Hawk and a major supporter of Cal Berkeley and part owner of the Seattle football team at one time. And Steve has been a tremendous philanthropist to the University of Santa Clara and owned the A's during the Moneyball period. But nobody really talks about Steve, right? They talk about Billy and what happened there. So John has written this book, which is coming out now. And I think it came about through promoting the book, which everybody should do, with Steve Schott, and then talking about Joe Lacob wanting to buy the A's from Haas and then maybe Schott and Hoffman. I think that's how it sort of all came together. And the timing is such that the A's are in the most significant down period maybe that they've ever had in their entire history, starting from Philadelphia. In Oakland, absolutely rock bottom. And John writes baseball, and you think about how people reacted when they saw this on the front page of the Green. Like, wow. I mean, I heard from some people who just said, wow, wouldn't this be great, if Joe owned the team? And it's like, it would be, but John owns the team.
Now, do you also think that it's because Joe Lacob wants to buy the team? I was thinking, because he has made it clear that he believes, A, the A's should stay in Oakland, and B, he would like to own it. But there's a situation where the A's are not only halfway into Las Vegas, it would seem, but are in the middle of negotiations on a new stadium in Oakland that, frankly speaking, are not going as well as they could.
Well, you've followed this as closely and as knowledgeably as anybody on the planet. And you know so many of the details that most people's brains would explode, right? In terms of financing and EIRs and BCDCs and city council votes. Clearly, it's unclear what John's strategy is, other than there's a horse race between Oakland and Las Vegas, between Howard Terminal and these supposed two locations still unidentified by the A's that they're negotiating on in Las Vegas. So we don't have an end point because there's still many more steps in Howard Terminal, correct, Zennie?
Absolutely. In fact, we're about 2 weeks behind schedule.
And there are steps in Vegas because Major League Baseball has given the A's the approval to move out of the marketplace. You and I would say, well, wait a second, John, Dave Cavill, if you have a deal in Vegas, why aren't you backing up the trucks and moving to Vegas? Why aren't you announcing this is our final season? We're going to play someplace in the interim, whether it's the Aviators ballpark or wherever, but we've got a deal in Vegas. We're going. Why? Because they don't have a deal in Vegas.
No, not at all. In fact, this sets up a show that my friend is joining me on Thursday at 4:00, which will feature Andy, the legendary Pat Gallagher from Giants Enterprises, Mayor Brown, fingers crossed, I think, and my legendary boss, I still call him boss, Elihu Harris from Oakland, talking about one question. Why do sports teams leave Oakland?
Well, it's really simple. At one point, Zennie, we had how many?
3. Technically 4.
Well, many more, but now uno, and that uno is a question mark.
Right.
Definitely
Now,
a question mark.
the Oakland Roots soccer team would say, hey, look, don't forget us. But
I'm not forgetting anybody. I'm talking about in the big 4 sports leagues.
Yep.
And we did have Charlie Finley's Golden Seals.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any hockey, maybe roller hockey. So yes, it is a mind-numbing question that in a location that clearly is the best transportation hub in California, period, that people are going all over the place instead of looking at that as an opportunity to build our own China Basin, Mission Bay Plus right there.
I want to share something with you that happened to me while I was trying to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland. And it was in the face of a gentleman who, every time I walked into work, he said, you're not going to get the Super Bowl to Oakland. Now, this gentleman wasn't a Yahoo sitting on the street. Nothing against Yahoo sitting on the street, by the way. He wasn't someone that was, a bus rider or somebody that I saw.
He had some clout. He had some insight.
He was an employee of the city of Oakland. So here's a person taking Oakland taxpayer dollars who made it his point to tell me that what I was assigned to do, I wasn't going to get done. Instead of just letting him do that, which did go on the first 4 times, I finally got mad and said, I want you to say these words, Super Bowl Oakland. And then I kept after him for 5 straight days, yelling every time I went by, because he had spent the prior 8 days yelling at me, right? So finally, on the very day this sort of nonsense stopped because he finally said, Super Bowl Oakland. And I said, that's it. And the reason I say all that, Andy, is because Oakland doesn't believe in itself.
It has the highest level of low self-esteem of any metro area in the country. And it is completely self-inflicted. I'm most proud when we promoted Oakland for the 1987 All-Star baseball game. It seems like decades ago, because it was. But we brought the Major League Baseball decision makers to Oakland, right? And as you just said, most people, they have no clue. And so we had lunch up at the top of the Kaiser Center with Cornell Meyer, one of the greatest gifts to Oakland ever.
Yep.
And we were looking down on Lake Merritt, and one of the guys from New York said, "Hey, when did you build this?" And then later that day, we took him to Jack London Square. And then we went to the Paramount Theater, and another person said, "Wow, this is like the coolest theater we've ever been in." And I go, "Yeah, that's where we're going to have the Four Tops and these other groups." Like, huh, is this new? No, you moron, it's not new. Then that evening, Zennie, I can't remember who it was, but somebody in the city had a beautiful home up in Piedmont or Montclair, and we had cocktails up there, and they had this vista of the bay. It was a beautiful day, and you could see San Francisco. And I said, "Do you understand that in the summer, this is where the rich people from San Francisco came to live so that they didn't have to deal with the fog every day?" And the person said, "Oh, you just made that up, right?" And you go like, "No, I didn't just make it up." And we had the All-Star game. You remember the fireworks show around Lake Merritt was just what an incredible celebration of Oakland. And that always stuck with me because it showed that if you promote this marketplace, do we have our challenges and problems? Heck yeah. Just like every other major metropolitan area in North America. Yep. But if you constantly demean yourself, people are going to believe it.
That's exactly what's going on then and now. And I'm interested because Joe Lacob said something too when I interviewed him during that party that the media mistook for a groundbreaking at Pier 32, right? Remember that?
David Stern was there. He was there. Peter was there. They were showing the bay. Yes, I do remember.
And I'm the only Yahoo running around saying to them, "So, hey, what do you think when Oakland sues you?" Which never happened, right? I was absolutely, I'm pushing for it. I'm like, yeah, sue him. You know, as proud as I am of the work that the late Ed Lee did, who was actually our first client as a consultant, by the way, did in getting the Warriors from Oakland to San Francisco. But the bottom line is we didn't sue. And, Willie Brown was pushing for the Warriors, why I'm dying to have him on Thursday, literally, because I want to ask him about that, right?
Well, it was, I know a little bit about that and it goes right to Howard Terminal. You want to build anything on or near the water in the Bay Area? Good luck. Your kids will be driving by that time. It's just that complicated. And thank God it is because of protecting the environment. So the Warriors said 3032, this is going to be great. We have kayakers coming in here. And then the architect said, "Oh, incidentally, it's going to cost another $10 million to build this. And it's going to cost another, more importantly, 4 years to build this." And that's when Lacob and Goober, more power to him, said, "Okay, nope, we're not doing that. We're going to China Basin," right? It happened pretty darn quickly because of money and time. So same thing. All right, you got 56 acres at a Howard Terminal parking lot, which has been approved by BCDC. You want to tell me when you're breaking ground for that? Get back to me.
Yeah, that's the problem because they still have to form, as I was saying to the mayor a week ago, they still have to form the Public Financing Authority, which, as I said to the mayor, had I been in charge of the project, I would have formed immediately because we would have had monthly meetings and you would not have had to go back to, if you had posted a question on Google, update for Howard Terminal, it would take you to our page and you would have had the latest instead of, get this, you know what the latest update date is? February 25th of 2022. Today is the 11th.
Okay.
Right?
I just have this as we sort of head to the end of this and get excited about the start of Thursday.
Yeah.
So this is a US dollar coin.
Aha. Hold it a little bit close. More to your right. More to your right. There you go. Now higher a little bit. Stop. Now I'm back over to the right. Stop there. It's in center. Now it's centered.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you need 12 billion of these to build the new urban ballpark city, right?
Yeah.
12 billion.
Hold it
You
right.
want to tell, I got one. You want to tell me when you're going to get the rest of those 12 billion to build this, Joe?
Well, that's the
Not Joe, but
no,
John.
but you're right, because that's why I think, come to think of it, Joe Lacob should be involved with John Fisher in that, because Dave Cobble told me they need a development partner.
And who has been named as the development partner as of this interview?
Oakland hasn't found one for them. That's what Oakland does. That's what Oakland needs to do. That's economic development officials like myself or anybody else do that. And look, when I worked for Elihu, Andy, the job of finding, you remember this because we had that famous meeting in Elihu's office where you thought you had me. But at any rate, folks, I'll tell you the story. Basically, the A's, from our perspective, were not paying their share of electric costs. The A's did not want to pay that share because they were trying to save money for reasons that were arguably justified, both then and now. But because, and this is, I understand why people do this. I understood it then. You want to talk to the big cheese. You don't necessarily want to talk to the big cheese's rep, because the idea is you want to hear the voice. You want to hear from the big cheese, the mayor, him saying, hey, look, we're not going to pay that. Now, Andy seemingly thought, okay, I'm going to go over and I'm going to get a meeting with Elihu because I talked to Zennie, but I don't really like what Zennie had to say.
You're bringing back something into history. Let's not lose our friendship.
Oh, no, it was fun. I had every minute of it, only because to your surprise, here I am right in. We had planned this.
Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing here?
Right, what am I doing there, right? And Elihu, I mean, it was kind of funny because Elihu stood right behind me and basically mouthed the same words that I said. So you could basically say that I was a puppet. But
hey, we're all puppets to somebody.
Right. But the whole point was that it was a good lesson, I think, in how government and business interplay, right?
Teamwork, leadership, and trust, which we'll talk about on Thursday, right, and is missing in some of these areas. And you know what? The good news, Zennie, is maybe this article, which has engendered a lot of talk. I've heard from a lot of friends and others, you have too, about John's article about Joe buying. Mm-hmm. Maybe John reads the paper and goes, maybe I should chat with Joe. We want a simple ending. We want the Oakland A's to play for decades more in Oakland, whether it's in a parking lot at Howard Terminal or the more rational location in the Coliseum, which could be a magnificent next chapter of the community. Madam Mayor keeps talking about the transformative nature of Howard Terminal. I'll tell you, I think it's a lot more transformative and a lot more realistic at 66th Avenue in Oakland.
Yeah. The problem is that Libby gave them a choice. You know how this happened is Libby basically, instead of saying, hey, look, you have to be at the Coliseum, she let them make the choice in the ENA. And you know what they did? They split the baby, as they say, and said, okay, we'll take both. We'll take Howard Terminal for the state.
Well, let's make sure on Thursday we spend a few minutes talking about that question I asked between Ray Bobbitt now in the African American Sports and Entertainment Group and the A's owning 50% of the Coliseum, and who can build what, where, when, how is that going to work on the 155 acres at the Coliseum? Forget the 56 acres at Howard Terminal.
Well, here's some news I can break right here, and I'm going to separate it out. I've been holding it in, but I'll just say it. They're actually working on a joint use agreement as we speak. In fact, the edited portion of it was finished last week. And I think when Ray comes back from vacation, they're going to meet again and go over the I's and the T's, as they say.
And that doesn't need any public approval?
It will through the JPA. And the reason why I say it like that is because we've never been through this territory before, so I have to think procedurally.
Yeah.
Since the negotiators are really the Coliseum Joint Powers Authority, where the city and the county meet, if you will, both legally and physically, okay? It would have to start with the JPA in order to ratify whatever is written. And then it would have to go to both the city council and the Alameda County Board of Supervisors to basically ratify that.
Is this number 35 in your chapter of your book?
The book that I should write that should become a movie.
Yeah.
You want to help me with that, Andy?
We'll talk offline. Let's go. Let's say goodbye for today.
Hey, everybody, join us. I'll be back later, but please, Thursday at 4:00 Pacific, be here. We are going to have a lot of fun.
Always a pleasure, and you can't make this up. This is historically intuitive and true. 98% of it is true, right, Zennie?
I'm looking forward to the 2%.
See ya.
On it backstage, Andy. Hey, everybody, subscribe to Zennie62 and bookmark OaklandNewsNowBlog.com. That ends this broadcast. Thanks, Andy. Stick around.
Bye, Zennie.